So let's bring in the host of the Michael Knowles Show, our friend Michael Knowles. Michael, always great to see you. Welcome.
Ed, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
You know, Hillary Clinton told the House Oversight Committee today she's got no new information about Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. She went as far to say as, quote, "I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein." It's interesting. Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding, and both Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were inside the Clinton White House, you know, more than a dozen times. And Bill Clinton was on that Lolita Express many, many times. What are your thoughts about the Clintons in the hot seat?
Well, I think probably what happened is that Hillary bleached her memory. She wiped it just like that server in 2016. And so, look, she doesn't remember a thing. Maybe Hillary did not attend her daughter's wedding, so she would have had no opportunity to meet Ghislaine Maxwell. I think it's great to see them both in the hot seat. I want to set expectations here for conservatives who think that some great new revelation is going to come out. Probably it will not. One, the Clintons are pretty slick. You know, Bubba can somehow even weasel out of the meaning of the word is. Two, this scandal has been brewing for what, 20 some odd years now, almost coming up on it, probably about 18 years. And so the idea that there was some smoking gun that hasn't been shredded by now, I think is pretty silly. But the good that this will do is, one, hopefully we'll get a little bit of information, and two, it will recenter this Epstein scandal as what it was, which is primarily a Democrat scandal. It's not that there were no Republicans around there, but when this story came up in 2014, 2015, it was about Democrats, major Democrat donors, businessmen, politicians like Clinton. So it just refocuses it, and I think it takes a chip off the table for the Democrats who are disingenuously using this heading into the midterms.
Disingenuous is a good word, because when you talk about smoking guns, if they had a smoking gun on Donald Trump in the Epstein files, wouldn't some Democrat have leaked it in the last 20 years you're talking about, A? And B, they spent all this time saying the walls are closing in. We've heard this so many times, going back to when I met you in the first Trump term, when the Russia collusion conspiracy and all the walls are closing in on Donald Trump. They never actually finished that, number one. And number two, if the Democrats had a lot of information about Epstein, by the way, in general, why didn't the Obama administration leak it out in the last 20 years? Why didn't the Biden administration seek justice for the female victims?
Of course. Obviously, President Trump just declassified some 3.5 million pages of Epstein documents. But let's go back further. The Epstein case began under the Bush administration. What happened then? Did Barack Obama arrest anybody? No. Did he release any documents? No. Trump comes in, he arrests Epstein, he arrests Ghislaine Maxwell. Then Biden comes in, and what happens? Basically nothing. Joe Biden didn't declassify any documents. Then Trump comes back in and issues the largest declassification in American history. So the way that the left-wing media have spun this as to somehow implicating or incriminating Donald Trump is totally nuts. And if we can just reset the narrative back to reality before the midterm elections, that alone will be a pretty good service, even if we don't get the smoking gun that people are looking for.
Speaking of smoking guns, the investigation that nobody's really talking about but us and a couple others, probably you as well, the FBI were learning under Joe Biden, when he was not dealing with the Epstein matter, but he was subpoenaing Kash Patel's phone records in 2022 and 2023. Susie Wiles, who was campaign manager for Donald Trump, now the White House chief of staff, of course, but they were private citizens, and they were digging around, and there's even this revelation now that there was a phone call between Susie Wiles and her attorney at the time, and the lawyer knew, but she didn't know that the FBI was listening in, Michael, and recording the conversation, shredding attorney-client privilege. I mean, it doesn't sound like America to me, the lawfare that was going on under Joe Biden. Your thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, because I remember the lawfare going on under Barack Obama, it does kind of sound like modern America to me. It's certainly not what America should be. But this, too, reminds us that the Democrat accusations are usually confessions. And so when the Democrats have been making hay about the abuse of government under Donald Trump and weaponizing the DOJ, it's total nonsense. We've known, going back to the Obama administration, that the Obama DOJ was wiretapping the Trump campaign. We then know that the DOJ under Joe Biden was going after all sorts of political enemies, infiltrating Catholic churches because they viewed Catholics as domestic extremists, and then lying about infiltrating the churches, and imprisoning pro-lifers, and the list goes on and on and on. So this is of a piece. As far as I'm concerned, it's par for the course. But this is a good reminder for everyone watching out there. When you hear about the abuse of government under Trump, keep all of this fodder for the water cooler, because whatever the Democrats are accusing Trump of, they themselves have done 10 times over.
Yeah, on steroids, the PTA meetings, the school board meetings, that they were treating parents like domestic terrorists under Joe Biden. It's disgusting. Let's not let Republicans off the hook before we go. You've got the Senate Republican leader, John Thune, saying there's just no time, Michael, to deal with the SAVE Act, or the Save America Act, as the president calls it, in terms of making sure we have voter ID. So we're like, okay, so what are the senators in both parties so busy with? And we find out there was a Mardi Gras-themed dog parade around the Senate this week. And there's Tom Tillis, one of the guys who doesn't seem to want voter ID. So this is what even Senate Republicans are spending their time on. I'm at a loss for words, Michael.
Well, it's very time-consuming. You got to put the little hats on the dogs. Sometimes you got to get the videos, how cute they are. This is pretty weak stuff. We know why the Senate Republicans don't want to take up the SAVE Act, because they think it's going to fail. They just don't think they have the 60 votes, and they don't want to put the squishy Republicans in a tough spot. But I think this is a fundamental political miscalculation. Voter ID is popular. It is popular with every demographic. It is like 80% plus popular. And so, yeah, the SAVE Act probably will fail if it goes to a full vote in the Senate. Good. Get the Democrats, at the very least, on the record as opposing an 80-20 issue in the United States. This is basic stuff. Do we forget that we won the elections, and we won the elections with unified government to actually do things, at the very least, to affect the 80-20 issues? So let's deliver, guys. You know, I understand cowardice dominates in Washington, D.C., but here it's just bad calculations. The SAVE Act is a political winner. Get the Democrats on the record.
Yeah, and it's the president fighting in the State of the Union, saying this is a winner, as you say, and I get it. You're right. Let's call out the Democrats and get them on record. But there's some Republicans who don't seem to realize that their party won that last election with President Trump in a landslide, and they're not following up. Michael, we appreciate you. We'll have you back very soon. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.